firm that uses data science to recommend beauty and skincare products to consumers. Tari writes and commemorates and commentates for a variety of media organizations, including ESPN. This girl reports for ESPN, Inside Lacrosse Magazine, I get goosebumps when I do this, and Athletes Unlimited, and has also created content for the Premier Lacrosse League and National Lacrosse League. She has provided commentary for World Lacrosse events, most recently the Women's World Cup Championships, and is a pioneer in calling the Sixes Olympic format of lacrosse for men and women. Fueled by her passion for global travel, she's always in the air. I see your Instagram. Fueled by her passion for global travel and sport, Tari has traveled the world that she has to play, coach, and cover lacrosse as well. Community service is of the utmost importance to Tari, and she serves as lead clinician to the USA Lacrosse and Kofa Lacrosse Clinic Series, and is a member of the board of directors of Tewaratan Foundation. Help me welcome my little sister, Tari Kandemiri.
Now I'm nervous. How do I follow up the speech with that intro? Thank you, Sishingi. But my sister and I always say Sishingi, Sishingi. I think since we were little, I moved to the US when I was 7 years old. We've always looked at you as our inspiration. I know Naki feels the same. I know Ru feels the same. So it's an honor to be invited here to speak in front of you and in front of everyone, and so many friendly faces that I love and have gotten to know over time. I'd be remiss, not to give a special shout out to my mom, Portia Kandemiri, right there. Her. And then I gotta give a shout out to the Love Sisters. I would not be here without the Love Sisters. I feel like I trailed behind you all as you went to conferences and heard such empowered, wonderful women speak. And so to now get a chance to be one of the women on this stage speaking is just such a wonderful opportunity. So I'm very grateful and looking forward to sharing my thoughts with you all today. So a little bit about my background and how I ended up here. I was born in Harare, Zimbabwe in 1996, fall baby. I always say September is the best month. Shout out to my Libras. And I moved to, can you tell I'm a millennial? I know nothing about astrology. My best friend is very into it, so I have to mention I'm a Libra in case anyone else is out there. But I moved to the US in 2004 to Silver Spring, Maryland. So this is home for me, the DMV. I also attended a liberal arts institution. I went to Sewanee, the University of the South in Tennessee. And that education, getting that experience of learning globally, learning to think globally, learning how to research. I mean, we were writing papers every single day. One class had a 30-book reading list. I'm like, I'm a computer science major. What does this have to do with me? I'm here to type and use my computer. But that education, I think, is the hallmark of my learning about inclusion, about the importance of inclusion in all these different spaces. And I'll be bringing some of that thinking in our conversation today. I was also lucky enough to receive the Posse Foundation full tuition scholarship that helped me attend Sewanee. So for parents that are out there, especially if you have high schoolers, please look up Posse, it's P-O-S-S-E Foundation, and it's a full tuition scholarship. It covers all of their college tuition, and amazing schools like Bucknell, Sewanee, where I went, are on that list of schools. So for your scholar, I'm happy to talk to them, help you identify scholarships that are relevant for them. But I also have to give a shout out to Posse because that's where I began. So Sishingi mentioned that I work as a management consultant for a consulting company, a big consulting firm. I think now we have about 780,000 people in the firm, and I'm lucky enough to be one of the managers in our consumer goods and services sector with a focus in data management and in cloud migration and cloud computing. So my passion is technology. If I'm not on my computer, I'm playing lacrosse. If I'm not playing lacrosse, I'm on my computer. There was a question about artificial intelligence and the impact that it's going to have in our society and that it has had. And I think we are happily in an AI household. We're always making AI-generated imagery and thinking of storytelling in ways that AI can help us. I think that the biggest part when I think about artificial intelligence and its impact that it has on our community, especially for African people, right? So AI can now generate images and videos that look really realistic, but are not telling the full story, right? The true story. It might be an image of a village and they're like Zimbabwe, guys, and you're like, that is not what that looks like. Where did you get this? But it's so hard because AI is letting us create beautiful imagery and tell beautiful stories, but at the same time, it's also telling stories that are not the truth, right? And I think that's when our voices and our messaging become even more important. As we embrace this technology, as you yourselves are generating AI imagery and generating stories and songs and all these different things, you also can be a steward of that technology to tell the story of Africa, right? So this is the Africa that you see, right? The Africa that you've experienced. You can use AI to tell that story. Maybe you can't paint, but you remember what your township looks like, or your boarding school, or your favorite place in the city. You can use AI to create those images and tell the true story of Africa. I would love to log on to Facebook and see all of you posting and saying, I used the Bing AI image creator to make an image of what my boarding school looks like, how I remember it, and tell the story of your boarding school. Maybe you don't necessarily know how you want to phrase the story itself, right? But you can use AI to help identify the language and the words and how to say exactly what the color of that building looked like, or the flowers that were outside. I think we can embrace AI in telling the stories of Africa and not let someone else harness that technology to tell the story for us. I would say that's a big call out. And when I heard that question, I'm like, oh, I know that one. I think AI is so powerful and a really big part of the future of inclusion. I think it can help us tell the right stories and help us be part of that conversation without taking away from who we are. So back to my scheduled programming. It wouldn't be me if I didn't spend most of the time talking about technology and inclusion and all the different things. I mean, these small examples, for example, when you go get your face scanned for a photo, you're using a certain machine and you have to scan your body or something like that, right? There are people that are coding that technology behind those machines that may have their own biases. Someone may not have enough data to recognize a black or brown face, and so that machine is not going to recognize you. Or, if you're wearing your glasses, or if you're wearing even at TSA, sometimes I'll have my hair like this, sometimes I'll have braids. When I go to do my face scan in global entry, sometimes it takes a second to recognize me because my hair is different. But it'll say, okay, step back, or take your glasses off, or put your hair behind your ears, right? As this technology has been built, it hasn't always taken our people into consideration. And that's just such a big, impactful part of, what do you mean you can't recognize a black or brown face when we have a large population of black and brown people in the world, and in the US especially. So I really love to tap into technologists and creators that are passionate about making this technology accessible and making sure that the AI recognizes my face, my name, that, if someone has an accent on their name, Lupita Nyong'o, there are some systems that won't even let her put that little, little signal that's in her name, right? And that's because someone is coding that technology in the back end and they're not thinking about it. Or if you're filling out a form and you were born in Zimbabwe, right? But it might ask you for a state. You're like, okay, well, the form is supposed to auto-update to ask just for my city, but we don't have that, that way of identifying our region. So why isn't it asking, am I from this region, or this region? It's asking me for a state. Those are all zip code, especially, right? Like, those are things that are not necessarily relevant to us, but technologists have to have the knowledge and the understanding that they should consider these really important focal points as they build their technology. So part of my work, I am really passionate about that. With Hama Beauty, for example, the startup that I founded, it's a platform that lets you put in your age, your skin tone, your skin type, and then you'll be able to get recommendations for the best products for your skin. I built that with inclusion in mind. I remember going to a Sephora in Atlanta and trying to find a product that had some sunspots from being in the sun all summer for playing lacrosse, and just even trying to see, okay, there's 100 products that are all saying they'll do the same thing. Which one actually makes sense for my skin tone, my age, my needs? And so using my knowledge of data science, of algorithms, I wrote an algorithm that can calculate the best product for me based on other people like me, what they like, their sentiment of the product. That's another way that I've used technology to empower myself, empower my communities, to make sure that we get the answers we need. And I make sure I try to do my part in continuing that journey, because that's very important to me as well. Recently, so at work, I work at Accenture, and I've started going into the office more. And I was just drinking my coffee, doing my work, went for a little break, and someone mentioned that there was an hour of code, which is an hour-long initiative that we do every couple of months, where we help elementary schoolers learn about technology and coding. And I'm like, okay, I could go back and do a PowerPoint, or I can go peek in and see what they're doing. So I'm like, oh, do you mind if I just come and sit? I just want to see what they're doing. And it was a room full of kids from very diverse backgrounds. They were third graders. Some of them were just really learning how to read and how to identify and put sentences together. But they could click on that computer, they could listen, they knew where YouTube was, where this was, where this was. And we were teaching them how machines are taught to identify images. We were teaching them how we teach machines to do all these different things. And the way they did it was, it would show a picture of a fish and say, does this belong in the ocean? Then the kids will say, yes, it does. And they click the big yes button. Or they'll show a water bottle. Does this belong in the ocean? And they're like, no, no, no. They have to click the no button. And we did that continuously. And by creating this system that really not necessarily boiled the subject down, but made it accessible, all of a sudden third graders were able to understand AI probably better than it took me to understand it. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at their computers like, oh, this is what y'all have access to. It took me to college to get this, I'm a little jealous. But I'm realizing again that the technology is becoming accessible to people of all different ages, right? I think when we talk about inclusion, sometimes there's an idea that we're only considering our race or we're only considering our background. But I've also realized, especially in working with young people, is the languages that people speak or their backgrounds, their age, right? Inclusion in age and creating technology, because that's the world they're gonna grow up in. Their teacher told me that from kindergarten up until I believe last year, they only had virtual school. Yes. So they don't necessarily know how to write the way that we write. They don't know how to write cursive. They know how to click a button, and they know how to do text to speak on Google Docs, and that is how they learn. So they're kind of learning backwards in a way, but it's just so much fun and it's so interesting. And one of the students, he was Hispanic, and I noticed he was kind of having a little trouble just understanding the instructions. So I speak Spanish. I went to him, I'm like, hey, are you okay? Do you understand? Can you identify the fish? He understood. As soon as we explained it to him in Spanish, he said, okay, now I understand. I'm clicking my fish, I'm doing my thing. So again, inclusion across age groups and technology is a very relevant point. So as I kind of wrap up the end of my speech, I'd be remiss not to touch on inclusion in lacrosse. Lacrosse is my life. I've been playing lacrosse since my freshman year of high school. I went to Springbrook, so I'm a MoCo girl at heart. Shout out to Springbrook High School. And I really fell in love with the game. But what many people might not know about lacrosse, in 2021, the NCAA did a survey, and 84% of lacrosse players across all of their divisions, all three divisions, every single school in the US, were white. Only 4%, I think it might have been 3.78, almost 4% were black. For 2.5 years, when I was at Sewanee, I was one of those statistics, one of the few black people in lacrosse. And in my travel team, my club team, my college team, I was the only black person on my team. In theory, and maybe for people that aren't in this room, that doesn't always resonate, right? They understand oh, okay, she was the only black person, but they don't know the emotional implications of that experience, right? We're not, y'all know it, you know the vibe, right? When you're in the office, you're the only, or in different rooms, even when you believe in yourself, or you know you deserve to be there, right? Being the only black person was a difficult experience. It's not having a chance to really connect, right? They have their experiences, they have their sororities, I have my experiences, and we might both be very nice people, equally friendly, lovely people, but trying to find a common thread for me was difficult, where I couldn't explain hey, this racist incident happened on campus and I'm having a really bad day and I don't want to be at practice because that affected me. That person may be an ally and they may understand, but they may not be able to completely relate to that experience. I would be on a bus to Kentucky for 7 hours. My best friends are having a barbecue with the Qs on the quad, they're fundraising, they're doing all these fun things, and I'm sitting here why am I putting myself through this? Why am I allowing myself to be in this place where I'm the only one that looks like me and I'm having trouble and I miss my friends? But I think those experiences have taught me that I have a bigger purpose. Right. As I went through those experiences on my club team at Sewanee, and again, amazing institution, I loved my time at Sewanee, and I think it really helped me understand my purpose in the classroom and on the field. I realized that I could use my voice, my social media. I have over 30,000 followers, I think close to 40,000 covering lacrosse. I realized I could use my platform not only to share what had happened, because when I would share things that happened to me, other people would DM me, parents would DM me and say, my daughter, this happened on her team, someone made a joke about a noose, someone made a joke about this, and they wanted my advice, and I realized I could use my platform to identify resources. Maybe I don't have all the answers, but I can identify the resources to then help people connect together and say, okay, you went through this, I've been through something similar, let's work together to find a solution. Inclusion in lacrosse means the world to me. With USA Lacrosse and some of my best friends, we have been on planes to Oakland, California. We've been on planes to Miami. We've gone to Hilton Head. We've gone to Detroit. We've gone to places that traditionally they're not bringing lacrosse to because, oh, they don't want to play lacrosse. They play football. They play basketball. Like, they don't play lacrosse over there. I get it all the time from people of all backgrounds. Black people don't play lacrosse. We do. You know that? We do. Exactly. How do you know? I'm telling you right now, I play lacrosse in Black. And to introduce the sport, to work with grassroots organizations, to show them just how much fun lacrosse can be, it's opened so many doors for me. Whether I think it played a huge part in me getting a chance to go to Sewanee, showing that I'm doing something different, I'm in my community, I'm coaching, I'm bringing lacrosse to all these different groups. It's taken me to Portugal, to Spain, to Mexico. My sister and I just came back from playing in Mexico City, and up in the mountains, and using my Spanish for lacrosse reasons. I had definitely beefed up my language skills while I was there. So when I walk through these doors that are open and I realize there's not that many of us, but I'm having so much fun, I'm finding success, I'm making connections, I'm making friends around the world. Every single person around me also deserves that same chance. Right. Whether it's through technology or through sport, I'm gonna find a way to open those doors, buzz them down, and we are all gonna get a chance to And I'm just so proud of the journey that I've taken, and I think every couple of years I enter a new phase in my lacrosse life. So the next phase, there's always a plan. I always, even when I'm relaxed, I'm supposed to be chilling, but I always have a plan. The next phase is we are starting national teams for Zimbabwe. Lacrosse will once again be an Olympic sport, and women's lacrosse an Olympic sport for the first time in 2028 in Los Angeles. And lacrosse is now Zimbabwe is now a full member of World Lacrosse, the governing body that works with the Olympic Committee to, in partnership to bring lacrosse to the Olympics. And in conversation with my mentors and meeting people around the world that started Ghana lacrosse, South Africa lacrosse, Kenya lacrosse, Uganda lacrosse, I realized, I said, well, why not us? Why not Zimbabwe? And working with Africa Lacrosse and our president, Chelo, who's based in Bulawayo, she's currently there now, we're working on building a foundation to be a national team, to be an African team that makes it to all these global events. And if you have young people, I'm looking at you, you look athletic. We can teach you the sport. We welcome players of all ages. We'll have clinics and camps here and in Zimbabwe. I posted, and I'm so thankful that the community shared all those posts across social media. I got emails, one person, fortunate, he said, my sister, she's actually a teacher, and she wants to bring lacrosse to her school. How do I get connected to you? Fortunate, I'm like, this is my number, hit me up on WhatsApp. A young woman, Lexi, she DM'd me on Instagram, and her father is Zimbabwean. They're based on the east coast of Pennsylvania. She's going to Denver. She's committed to play Division I lacrosse, her and her twin sister. And they have been waiting for a Zimbabwe. She said, we have been waiting for a Zimbabwe national team so they get a chance to represent. And she's 16 years old, so that means our future is so bright. We have players that are ready to go, that know lacrosse. We have new players, and our first tournament will be in Pennsylvania, May 24th to 26th in Haverford, so keep an eye out because we'd love to have your support. That would mean so much to us. Thank you. And I think I end with, I'm grateful. I think the African community, I ignore any stereotype that, that we're not innovating and we're not building and we're not showing each other love. I think the community has shown me love since I was a baby, right? Like since I was a baby, since I was 7 and moved here, since I've been 21 at my graduation party, since I moved to Atlanta, there's always love around us. And I think even in times where, the America at large makes me feel like this anomaly or makes me, feel like because I'm a Black woman, I can't do X, Y, Z. I lean on my community. I lean on the love that's shown to me here. And I think that will continue to power us through. So thank you all so much. Thank you for your time.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Well done.
As I was sitting here listening to you speak, I was just rummaging through my mind thinking about the term inclusion and how sometimes we do ourselves an injustice by the way things have been set up by thinking that we don't belong in certain spaces and places. because that's not for us, because you said, oh, well, black people don't play lacrosse. When she said lacrosse, I'm like, lacrosse? That's not a sport where you see a lot of black people. But the truth is, oftentimes white people colonize things that they didn't even create. They did not create lacrosse. It does not belong to them, right? So it can therefore belong to anyone who wants to be a part of it. And I love what you're doing in terms of educating and letting more people know about opportunities, and that you too, if you like something and you want